Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here. Hope you're all doing well today. I am fully swamped in busyness as I am going on vacation tomorrow. So I'm trying to finish up everything I need to finish up and get things all finalized and packed and ready. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into today's news. I will be doing my absolute best to cover various things while I am abroad, because I'm going to be in Scotland for roughly 2 weeks. So yeah, I'll do my best, but I may miss various things, and if I do miss anything, then don't worry, I will cover it and talk about it as soon as I get back on the 15th. Though the day I get back, I'm not going to do anything, so I'm treating more like the 16th. But I hope you all are excited as tons and tons of news is continuing to pour out from Creative Assembly. And today is the first of a new set of info bits, which is actually showing off the legendary lore traits and abilities and such for each of the individual characters. And the first one we're starting with is Kairos Fateweaver. So let's get into it. So just a reminder that while Kairos' mechanics are explained in this blog, this is in addition to the general Tzeentch mechanics. So something they're doing this game that I hope everyone really appreciates and is definitely a very good shift from prior games is that each of the legendary lords is of course leading their own unique faction and therefore will have significantly different playstyles and abilities, as opposed to a lot of the prior games where especially the starting lords tend to be so vanilla that it hurts, and they're just very, very, very basic and end up being drastically outpaced often by the DLC or free DLC lords that come afterwards. This is the first game in the Total War Warhammer trilogy where they seem to be trying to avoid doing that and making the launch characters actually really interesting instead of them being like the prior ones, because I think many people would agree that the 8 starting characters from Total War Warhammer 2 and 1 are definitely some of the most boring characters, and that they usually need significant amounts of updates and reworks in order to fix them. Some nowadays have gotten much, much better after all of the tweaking and fixing, but yeah. So anyway, just a quick heads up that before we get into it, obviously this is still in development. The game is still months away from being released, and nothing is finalized, so keep in mind while they are telling us that the general, like the feel of everything we're going to be looking at is finalized, none of the stats are. So we're kind of starting to get the ideas of how characters in the game is going to play, but obviously none of the super individual little numbers and stuff are set in stone yet. So anyway, let's get into it. So the biggest thing they talk about is that of course, these characters are going to be significantly different from one another, even characters that share the same race. And they're going to be trying their hardest to make it where each individual character really feels different. So first one we start off with is Kairos Fateweaver. So we've got the big bird man himself, and you could see the new details. So it's a new menu setup where you have your difficulty modifiers, your details, which tells their effects and their little story bit. There looks like to be some further settings you can mess with. And then, of course, you have the map, which they're not showing us just yet. So here we can see that there's actually a new mechanic in the game, which is reinforcement time, which I am very, very, very much looking forward to, because I think it's going to make them a lot more interesting. But for faction effects, Kairos makes it where enemies will have a much harder time predicting when their allies are going to show up. If you have allies showing up, they're going to show up 50% faster. And then all of the heroes in your faction have a 15% bonus to success chance, which is really scary. And then for his personal lord effects, Kairos, of course, can customize his spell selection he makes it where enemy heroes against him and his army have a minus 50% success chance, and then he has a 50% resistance to being ambushed. So if you hate Skaven and don't want to deal with their BS, then Kairos may be the character for you. But so real quick, they talk about that, they kind of break all this down, but one of the first things they're going to talk about is that reinforcement battles. So now, whenever you reinforce, there is a timer that appears determined by various factors, which will make it easier to take on two armies with one smaller one, as they are naturally split up. So no longer are you going to have to fight. So when the enemy gets reinforcements, the old style is totally gone. When you go into a reinforcement battle, it is no longer a system of like you show up on the battle and you see a little marker about where the enemy's coming from, and when you hit start battle, they immediately start pouring on. That's totally gone. It's not a thing anymore, unless there's like a really specific mechanic causing it. Instead, so if you actually fight a battle against the main army, and also the balance of power no longer like you can defeat your opponent before their allies show up. So if you attack a tiny army that has like a single lord, right, standing outside of a settlement, and you kill him really fast or break and shatter him really fast before the enemy reinforcements arrive, then you'll win the battle. So you'll win the battle and the enemies will never show up. So it is no longer like an easy guaranteed system of, oh, I'm having to fight this one little army, but he's got like 3 reinforcement armies, so like I'm screwed. Like now you can actually rush across the battlefield and kick the shit out of the opponent, which is really, really cool. It's also probably going to make it a little bit harder to, not a lot harder, because people will still easily find ways to cheese it, but it'll make it a little more difficult if you have a small army to use it as bait to lure in an enemy, and then like use your reinforcements to save your bait army. Like the AI is actually going to have a good amount of time to try and wipe out your army and defeat you before your allies show up. I think this is a fantastic change. Also, they have reworked the lightning strike ability, so that lightning strike is now 3 skill points instead of 1, which I think is a huge change that is awesome. I personally hated the current lightning strike. I find it way too overpowered, whether the AI is using it or players are using it, especially if you're doing a head-to-head. It is a genuinely frustrating ability that is just way too easy to get. Now that you have to invest a significant amount of skill points in it, I think it's a lot more fair, but now it is that every time you invest a point into lightning strike, it makes the reinforcements for your enemy take longer for each point you invest. And then if you spend all 3 points, you actually gain the ability to do genuine lightning strikes. So the lightning strike does still exist, which personally I'm not a fan of. I think they should have just made it where every point makes the timer longer and longer, instead of actually making genuine lightning strike battles. I don't think those are necessary unless it was like a super unique trait to a certain character, or should be like exclusive to ambushes. But at least now you have to spend a fair amount of your skill points to do it. Then the other stuff they talk about is that they go ahead and tell us what the Tzeentch heroes are capable of. So the big thing is that the iridescent horror can assault garrisons, assassinate, and assault units, and the cultists of Tzeentch can damage walls, wound, and hinder replenishment. I will say that I hope they make hinder replenishment better in this game. It's in my opinion, hinder replenishment is probably one of, if not the most useless heroic abilities in the entire game, and it's just dumb to look like. I hate it. It feels completely useless, because there are so many ways to avoid attrition, and there's so many ways to get like to just avoid taking damage. And then when the AI has to heal, the AI's healing is often so insane that you just hinder replenishment isn't going to be enough to do anything. So I really hope that hinder replenishment is actually going to be made to be useful. Like either make it where it lasts longer, or maybe make it where it has a very high chance of success just base, because it's not that dramatic of an ability, but we'll have to wait and see. And then Kairos Fateweaver's legendary Lord effects. So the big thing they go ahead and talk about is Kairos's unique lores of magic, which is that once Kairos hits level 11, he gets the ability to grab a fragment, and every single fragment ability, there's no tree to it, as you can see. Also, we do get Kairos's skill tree, which is fun. So he has Hate Nurgle, Gaze of Fate, a whole bunch of abilities. But you can actually see that Kairos does not have a melee tree. So Kairos just is gonna struggle in melee combat. He's got his melee attack, melee defense, and weapon strength, and that's all he gets. Unless there's something in his unique tree, but he's definitely got the weakest combat stats of any of the greater demons. But as you can see, the lores are not tied together. So once you hit level 11, you can pick whichever ones you want, and go down those trees. So they actually go ahead and tell us everything about it. So each fragment will replace some of your spells from the lore of Tzeentch with some spells from another lore of your choosing. And these go in your arcane item slot, so you will not be able to equip an arcane item and have a fragment. You'll have to choose one or the other. But you can you'll notice there's 2 points on each of these fragments, and the first point unlocks it for you, while the second point reduces the cooldown cost of the spell and gives it your the passive. So for instance, if you have just the basic fragment of Gur, then you get the spells, but you do not get the Wild Heart passive. You have to have a second point in it for that. So it is a lot of points. I mean, that's 16 skill points to invest if you end up getting all of them. I imagine that's not going to be the case for most people, because you're probably going to want some of those skill points in other places, but it'll definitely be a good thing for picking, if there's a particular lore you like, because there's some particular thing you want to mix with your army, then it's a good place to invest. So the lore of Tzeentch normally, and then 2 of your spells will be replaced depending on which one you choose. So for instance, if you take the Fragment of Gur, you will lose Glean Magic and Infernal Gateway, but you gain Curse of Anrahir and Transformation of Kaden with the passive of Wild Heart. If you take the Fragment Shaiish, you get the Fate of Buna and Purple Sun of Xerius, but you lose Treason of Tzeentch and Tzeentch's Firestorm. If you take the Fragment of Akshi, you gain Piercing Bolts of Burning and Flaming Sword of Ruin, but you lose Glean Magic and Infernal Gateway. Fragment of Heavens gives you Comet of Kansandora and Curse of the Midnight Wind, but you lose Treason of Tzeentch and Tzeentch's Firestorm. Fragment of Gairan, which I imagine is going to be a very popular one, gives you Regrowth and Shield of Thorns, but you lose the Treason of Tzeentch and Tzeentch's Firestorm. Fragment of Hish gives you Bjorna's Time Warp and Net of Amentok, but you lose Treason of Tzeentch and Tzeentch's Firestorm. Fragment of Shaman gives you Transmutation of Lead and Final Transmutation, but you lose Gleam Magic and Infernal Gateway. And then Fragment of Ulgu gives you Occam's Mind Razor and Penundral Pendulum, but you lose Gleam Magic and Infernal Gateway. So that's all that information. Then they talk about Kairos Fateweaver's start position. They're not ready to show us the map yet, but they do tell us the details, and they show us the starting army. So Kairos Fateweaver's starting army is actually pretty not elite. It's the most elite thing you have are Screamers. So you have 2 Screamers of Tzeentch, 3 units of Blue Horrors, and a unit of Furies of Tzeentch. And it says Kairos starts his campaign on the board of Cathay with the region capital in his control, a Warriors of Chaos faction being the Kazog, inhabiting 2 of the settlements. So here we have confirmation the Warriors of Chaos can take settlements. So the Warriors of Chaos are no longer a Horde faction. They can take cities, they can take settlements, and we see the AI doing that. And then there is a minor Cathay faction, which is the Imperial Wardens, which are in the final slot for that area. Plus, the Imperial Wardens have a starting army ready to fight you. You do not start at war with the Kazog, so you can immediately start using the Changing of the Ways to mess with them. And then on the other side, near you lies a minor Khorne faction, which is Karneth's sons, which I presume are Demons of Khorne. And then you have Tzeentchian followers and the Flaming Scribes and a few native denizens of the Darklands. Tutorials, natural inclination, the fact that you can't make peace will push you off towards Cathay, but those, so, because being the demons of Tzeentch, and being a demonic faction, anytime that you come across a non-chaos aligned faction, you will immediately declare war on them, and you cannot make peace with them unless you're playing Slaanesh. So you will they say, you know, if you're playing, most people that play the Tzeentch campaign are probably going to be encouraged to immediately start slamming into Cathay. However, you could go other directions. You could mess with the other Warriors of Chaos factions. You can subjugate the Warriors of Chaos, and they note that there's one nearby you called the Dreaded Woe. Alternatively, you could head west towards the rest of the Chaos Wastes and the fringes of Kislev, or strike straight south looking for a way into Cathay through the Mountains of Morn. So they talk a little bit about his start overall, and while he is considered to have a normal start, his starting army is rather weak, though, you know, obviously you have a very powerful and mobile spellcaster, and you have a lot of very fast flying units, so it's not an army that you can really just like point and click and just zone out. It is an army you probably need to be paying attention and playing smart with if you don't want to get slapped super fast. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything to tell us about Tzeentch. The only thing, literally the only thing we don't know about Kairos now is like seeing an actual map with his actual start position. I find it interesting that they, according to the article, they seem to basically suggest that your only real directions at the start of the campaign is to go south, west, or kinda southeast. Where if you go southeast, you're gonna head towards the Great Bastion and mainland Cathay. If you go straight south, you'll go through the Mountains of Morn to try and get to Cathay, or that vague ballpark. And if you go west, you'll head more towards, you'll head across the Chaos Wastes and kind of be aiming towards Kislev. There's no mention of going north. Like, we know the Realm of Chaos is in the game because they did the whole article about how the Storm of Magic system only exists if you're fighting the actual Realm of Chaos itself. But from the way they're talking about it, I'm getting the feeling that maybe the Realm of Chaos is impossible to get to until something happens in the campaign. Like, I feel like all of it may be that the Realm of Chaos has cut off from the rest of the world until some sort of event happens. And once that event occurs, it then opens up and you are able to invade it as whoever your faction is. Because we know you have to go to the Realm of Chaos in order to get the Storm of Magic event in those regions, but you also have to go to the Realm of Chaos for the survival battles, which the survival battles are you defeating the other dark gods. So you go, for instance, to the Brass Citadel for Khorne. Tzeentch's is probably going to be the Well of Eternity or the Crystal Labyrinth or the Impossible Fortress, one of those locations. It's probably going to be Nurgle's Manse for the Plague God, and then the Palace of Slaanesh, or the Palace of Pleasure for Slaanesh, or whatever it's called. So I'm really curious to learn more about the Realm of Chaos, because like they've already admitted it's in the game, but because they keep avoiding talking about it, like they're acting like it's not in the game. And we know that when they talked about Kairos Fateweaver a bit back, they mentioned that Kairos is attacking the Great Bastion and he gets cut off from the Realm of Chaos by the dying scream of a god, or the scream of a dying god. So I'm thinking that whatever this dying god is, their scream as they're dying or what have you has apparently fractured the pathways to the Realm of Chaos enough that it's preventing the demons and mortals presumably from going there. So I'm assuming what it is that you are being forced out of the Realm of Chaos in the early campaign, and then you play through the campaign, and once you've taken enough territory or last enough turns, but something's gonna happen in the storyline, and once that story beat happens, it will result in the Realm of Chaos opening up, and then you're able to invade it and go do all the Storm of Magic battles and all that other stuff. But yeah, it looks super interesting. Kairos looks like a lot of fun. I'd love to know y'all's thoughts down in the comment section. Is there anybody that's sold on Kairos? Like, you've seen everything, you're like, yeah, that's absolutely who I want to play. This is my first campaign. I'm sold. I'm 100% in. Is there anybody that's in that camp, or are most of y'all still kind of waiting to see the other factions? And what do y'all think about the new reinforcement system? I am personally a huge fan. I think that making it where you cannot just get lightning strike at rank 6 and then just never have to deal with reinforcements for the rest of the game, I felt was such bad game design for a strategy game. Like, it's like, oh yes, like, once I hit level 6, everyone would just rush lightning strike because it just made the game so much easier, and you never had to deal with the AI outnumbering you and making battles harder, and then everyone would be like, oh, this game, the AI is so dumb. And it's like, well, the AI is expecting to have more guys than you. But anyway, I'd love to know what y'all think about the reinforcement timing system. I think it's fantastic. I'm really excited to mess around with it. Yeah, so Kairos looks great. I am definitely not starting with Kairos. I am excited to play him. I'm very excited to play him, but he's definitely not the character I'm going to start with. I'm waiting on some of the other characters. But hope you all are having a great day. I will have one last video, probably, if there's something coming out tomorrow, which I assume there is. But if there is, that will be my last video before I leave the States. And then everything that comes after that, I will be trying to take care of as I can. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.